today I have the privilege of talking with someone that I actually trained with, Tristan Coopersmith. And she is going to talk to us about voice. Tristan is a licensed psychotherapist, and she also has a fabulous women's wellness center here in the South Bay called Life Lab. So, welcome, Tristan.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you
Miss
too.
you.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to start with this quote, and then I think we'll just see how it evolves.
Okay.
So, and I had used this in my master's thesis. So, in this book, Waking Sleeping Beauty, Feminist Voices in Children's Novel, English scholar Roberta Trites argues that voice frequently serves as a metaphor of female agency.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And so fitting for the time that we're in right now, right?
Very relevant.
We're so trying to empower women to use voice, and really all people. You know, the conversation is so focused on women, but it's gender neutral.
Yes.
And just being able to ignite our voice is really important.
Right, and I agree with you that it's not necessarily a gender issue. Of course, it's been highlighted like that, but it's really about an abuse of power, right? And
Absolutely.
how do we use our voice to speak up to power?
To speak up and just get our basic needs met. Like if you think about from birth, it's the very first thing that lets people know we're here, we exist, and we need something, right? And it's our cry that carries us through for so long until we actually have other forms of communication, physically or through language.
Yes.
And then along the way, it just gets diminished, and it just gets quiet, and then it's hard for us to communicate. Like, hey, I feel this, I need this.
Yeah. So, what has your journey been about voice?
Well, the story goes that when I was little, when other kids were starting to verbally communicate, I would only speak if it was to a puppet or a stuffed animal. So this is the story. This is the tall tale that goes through my family.
Okay.
And it was very, very limited. And then fast forward to becoming a teenager, and I went on the other side, where I became extremely vocal. I got very clear on my values, what was important to me around middle school. And it was in direct conflict with what was important to my parents.
Oh, there you go.
And so my voice sort of erupted, and it was very loud. So it was a total juxtaposition from where I had come from. And it's kind of stayed the course ever since.
Okay, so that initial time of adolescence, when we individuate, separate from our parents, your voice emerged. And how has it grown, let's say? How has it gotten louder or stronger?
Has it gotten louder?
Or softer, maybe? I don't know.
Going sort of back to the idea of values, I really think that when we're clear on our values, and our values sort of just pulse through us, and we're very married to them, it trumps what holds our voice back. So what holds our voice back, right? A lot of fear, anxiety. Typically, we're looking to not deal with conflict, right? So if I have something to say to you, but I'm afraid you might not like it, or maybe you won't be my friend anymore,
or you'll disappoint me.
Yes. So like that's all conflict. So we're trying to avoid conflict. But if what matters to me is more important than my fear of conflict, then I can rise above that.
So if let me make sure I understand that. So if what matters to you is more important than your fear of conflict, you're there.
You're there, yeah.
Okay.
So recently I came out with my MeToo story, and it's a very public one. And people ask me, like, well, wasn't that scary? Weren't you worried about the backlash? Wasn't all that? And I'm like, well, sure, to some extent. But my values are truth speaking, transparency, courage, connection, vulnerability. Like that's where my heart lives. And those things matter more to me than the fear of people will judge me. People won't believe me. People will be angry at me, and on and on.
Right. So connecting to those values allowed you to speak your truth.
Yeah. It's almost like I had to. There was no choice. Because I wasn't honoring those values. I was holding a secret.
Yeah.
I wasn't honoring it.
So was there a moment where you kind of tipped and just said, okay, I'm going to do this? Was there anything that sparked that? Because it is a brave thing to do, and it is difficult.
It was I had written a letter with my own therapist a while back when the Harvey Weinstein allegations came out, and I had written a letter to my perpetrator just for a therapeutic experience, and never with the intent to send it. I just wrote it and put it away.
Was that healing for you?
It wasn't, and it usually is. Letter writing is usually very healing for me. Be. And I wasn't able to find healing in this, and I was having nightmares and flashbacks, and I was using all the resources and tools that I knew to heal myself, and it wasn't working. And then fast forward to the Women's March in LA.
Okay.
I went to that, and I was profoundly impacted by that experience. Yeah. And I don't remember any of what Viola Davis said as she spoke at City Hall, but I was just weeping, and it was so cathartic, and whatever she said made me feel so clear that my story wasn't my story to keep anymore. It was, I needed to give it away.
You needed to offer it.
Yes. And so I was very like, I'm going to do this. And then I went home and the reality set in like, can I really do this? Is this appropriate? Is there a downside? You know what? Back to that mental tennis.
Yes.
You know, where you're like,
Angel devil,
back and forth. Shouldn't I?
Yes.
And so I still wasn't completely clear.
Convinced.
And I realized that I didn't know what my purpose in sharing it was. And so I had to do some more processing. And when I figured out that my purpose was that the conversation about sexual harassment and misconduct needs to continue, it felt like it was dying and it needed to continue because I knew it was still an issue. That became my driving purpose. And I was like, here, now I have a reason. It's beyond me. It's beyond me and my healing. It's global.
Yeah, and meaning can inspire us.
Absolutely.
Yes, so that meaning and purpose.
Because that's what we do as healers, right? We go to be of service when we need to heal ourselves.
Yeah, and you know, the tricky thing about, I've experienced about being a therapist, and I don't know if this is true for you, you know, it's easy to be a therapist in the room. It's hard to actually be a therapist outside of the room and, you know, walk your talk, right? We're people.
It's so true. And I'm glad you mentioned that because so much of the work that I do in my private practice is helping women identify their core values, their authenticity, and stand by it wholeheartedly and speak up in their relationships. And here I was, and I wasn't totally doing that in my life. I was keeping a secret. And so you're right. I needed to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did, it's not easy, you know. As soon as I press post on my blog, I felt the liberation I was looking for. I felt the healing. It was just I felt so much lighter.
Your body physically
my body felt lighter.
Okay.
And I felt clearer, and I felt like I had like returned to center, you know, and I had like lost her for so long.
Yeah.
So that was confirmation that I had made the right choice.
Yeah, you returned home. Yeah, even though it was frightening.
Yeah.
But where there's fear, there's also transformation.
Absolutely. And
how has it been since the storm? How has it been since everything came out?
It was really unexpected. Okay. I was naive in what the aftermath might look like, and I'm actually very grateful for that.
Because maybe you might not have done it.
You know, it's like if you know, and it's really the story of my life. I tend to be pretty impulsive. You know, the commentary from my family is always like, you never think before you do something. And my response is always like, isn't that awesome? You know, like...
Right, because sometimes we can think too much.
We think ourselves out of life.
Yes, we do.
And we do. And I'm like, no, I want to live this life. And living this life means I have to be brave. I have to be courageous. And I have to live in alignment with who I am and what matters to me.
Yeah.
So the aftermath has been really interesting. There's been a tremendous upswell of support around me. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages from women all over the world saying thank you for sharing your story because it's the same as mine.
Yeah.
And there's been some backlash as well, but I'm really focused on just staying in the light of it.
Yes.
And continuing to help women in particular, you know, support them on their journey toward knowing their voice and finding it, because it's not just speaking it, it's also what am I saying in here? What's my intuition? You know, we're pretty disconnected from that.
Yeah, and you know, if you think about it, I mean, 1 in 4 women are depressed, right? So depression is really a pressing down of self. So it's a pressing down of voice because we're not being authentic, you know, and it's scary to be authentic. However, it sounded like it was really important for you.
It is really important for me.
Yeah, and that all the other marginalized people or people who haven't been able to, to use their voice, maybe this inspires them the way you were inspired.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going,
I hope so, because we have to keep talking about unfair treatment.
Yes.
Until there isn't any more unfair treatment.
Right.
And it takes people to continue that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So this is still happening, so we just don't turn a blind eye and a blind ear.
Yeah, and so that the people that are the perpetrators, they're people too, and when their, let's say their shadow side gets illuminated, they also get the help they need.
Exactly.
So
and that's what
healing.
I was hoping for.
Yeah.
I was hoping that this would, inspire the person who, treated me unfairly to take a look inside and say, okay, you know what? I made a mistake. What can I do with this?
Right.
To me, that's the honorable thing to do. But there's also the whole case of other people not speaking up, all of the witnesses. I received a few dozen emails from men who said, thank you for coming out with this story. We've been watching this person for decades mistreat women. And I was so saddened by that. Because I'm like, you didn't say anything. They didn't have
their voice.
You didn't have your voice. And so this isn't just about people who are like the direct victims. It's also about all the bystanders who see these things going on. And again, having the value of, I value people being treated well more than I put emphasis on being afraid I might rock the boat.
Yeah, piss somebody off.
Lose my job, like something like that. It's
right.
like, no, we've got to come back to human kindness, which says, I look out for you no matter what.
Yeah.
Because you're human and you're my sister.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the cost is, I look out for you.
Yeah. Well, certainly by sharing your story here today, you are saying that. You are. You're saying that. And I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability. And it's not easy to do what you did. I mean, I'm not surprised because I know you, but it's wonderful to see your growth with all of that.
Thank you.
And we'll see what emerges from all of this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing and offering healing to everybody. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking Bar, and be sure to tune in next week. And please don't forget to like and subscribe, because we are determined to break the stigma of mental health.